I was entangled with Lucas for 12 years. How many 12-year spans does one life have? Lucas, as you wish, I'm giving you back your freedom. Leaving those words behind, I walked away without looking back. Checking into the hotel, I turned off my phone and fell into a deep sleep. In my dream, it felt as if I had returned to when I was 16. When I first met Lucas, he was a boy still untouched by the world. At that time, my parents died in a car accident, leaving behind a huge compensation sum. Whoever gained custody of me would have the right to manage that money. When true feelings meet real money, which one is more genuine? I don't know. I told the lawyer I didn't need a guardian, just let the money sit safely until I came of age. Grandma scolded me for being ungrateful. Aunt Cynthia said I was heartless and couldn't help her. I left with a sullen face, dragging my suitcase, because they forgot that they had always said I was unlucky, that my parents died because of me. I changed schools and rented a new place, thinking I would be strong. But it wasn't until I had a fever that made my whole body convulse, and I forced myself to buy medicine, that I truly felt helpless and alone. That day, in that narrow, dim corridor, I met Lucas. He walked against the light, like a salvation sent from heaven, coming straight toward me. I fainted in his arms. At 16, I was certain that Lucas was the light that would lead me out of the darkness. During my 2-week illness, it was Lucas, who lived across the hall, taking care of me. After his parents learned about my situation, they treated me very kindly as well. My 16th year, after losing my parents and being abandoned by everyone, finally found warmth again by a stroke of luck. I clung desperately to that warmth, trying to make myself burn bright once more. After I recovered, Lucas accompanied me on walks. We sat on the lawn basking in the sunlight. He looked at me quietly and smiled, saying, "Elena, I'm your lifesaver. You owe me a debt of gratitude for saving your life." The boy's radiant smile was etched deeply into my mind from that moment. I smiled and asked him, then, "Lifesaver, how do you want me to repay you?" His face flushed red, but he stammered for a long time without saying what came next. After I transferred schools, Lucas and I became deskmates. He was very good at his studies, and he knew how to solve every problem I couldn't. Moreover, he always patiently and gently taught me until I truly understood. Looking back on those days, my heart still feels warm. I loved Lucas then, and I believed he loved me just as much as I loved him. But people change, and so does love, it fades. The reason people feel warmth is because the cold keeps reminding them of it. When I woke from a restless dream, it was already the afternoon of the next day. My phone was filled with unread messages. Glancing through them quickly, most were from friends. "Elena, you and Lucas have been together for so many years, how can you just call off the engagement like that? What a pity, Elena, you two were the couple everyone envied, how could this happen?" I didn't have the energy to explain much, especially when Lucas's call came through. "Where are you?" A simple question, but I heard endless impatience in his voice. As if I were a vendor who had pestered him countless times. I remember he wasn't like this before. Every word he spoke used to be as tender as water. Just hearing him say my name would almost melt my heart. When did he start to change? In a daze, his accusations came like a barrage. "What do you mean? Elena, how have I wronged you? Do you want to make a fool of me in front of all these relatives and friends? You've been like this for so many years. If I had known it would come to this, I never would have saved you." Yes, after so many years of feelings, he must have regretted it for many years too, right? But even now, he still thinks I'm just being unreasonable. "I'll come back tonight, let's meet. We can regret, or we can watch the bubble burst. But I owe the past 12 years an explanation." He sneered coldly, "I don't have time. The time I spent marrying you was all squeezed out. I told you to wait, but you insisted on choosing this moment." After speaking, he added sarcastically, "If you want to get married, I'll marry you. What else are you dissatisfied with? Am I really that cheap?" After more than 10 years of feelings, in the end, I became the one desperately pushing. His reluctance was obvious, and I lost the drive to push him. I know you're busy, so let's not get married. It'll save you some time." He lowered his voice and shouted angrily, "Elena, do you think marriage is a joke? If we don't get married, then don't ever mention marriage again." Ever? How could there possibly be an ever for us? Even now, he still thinks I'm just making a fuss, using the future as a threat to force me to compromise. Fine. He was stunned for a long time, and when there was a sound, it was the beeping of a disconnected call. I smiled, but the curve at the corner of my mouth was the most bitter. No matter what happened between Lucas and me, after all, I grew up in his home. Lucas's mother, Aunt Veronica, has always been very kind to me. Things must have a beginning and an end, and I owe her an explanation. It was just lunchtime, and we arranged to meet at a nearby restaurant. When I arrived, Aunt Veronica looked worried, but the moment she saw me, she managed to smile. I felt a bit upset, especially when I saw the table full of dishes I liked, my nose tingling with emotion. Aunt Veronica. She urged me to sit quickly and asked how I had been. Of course, things weren't going well. But I still said I was fine. She didn't say much, quietly watching me eat. Since yesterday, I hadn't eaten at all. Starving, I finished a meal, and when I looked up, Aunt Veronica's face was full of loving warmth. She took my hand and looked at me, tears suddenly glistening in her eyes. Elena, how did you get so thin? No matter what, you have to remember to eat well. Such care is something I had lost for many years and have now regained, but I don't know how much longer I can hold on to it. I swallowed the lump in my throat and smiled as I said, Aunt Veronica, I've been eating well. Aunt Veronica sighed and touched my face gently. Elena, you and Lucas, how did things come to this between you? At that moment, tears welled up and spilled over, and the fragile mental barrier I had built crumbled instantly. Yes, how did we end up like this? Was it time? Or the fickleness of the human heart? I didn't explain much to Aunt Veronica. At this point, no matter what I said, it wouldn't make much difference. Aunt Veronica didn't say much, just told me to think carefully and not to let myself down. Actually, things between Lucas and me would have been fine if everything had gone smoothly, but fate had other plans. Uncle Edward suddenly had a heart attack, and the expensive medical bills pushed this ordinary family to the brink. The living expenses for the three of us all depended on Aunt Veronica working alone. Lucas was very promising, always ranking at the top of his class. But on the night the acceptance letters from prestigious universities arrived, Aunt Veronica smiled until tears streamed down her face. Child, you've done so well, and I'm sorry, Mom. Lucas sat on the sofa, head bowed, his whole demeanor heavy with gloom. When he looked up again, he wore that understanding yet heart-wrenching smile. It's okay, Mom. I know Dad just had surgery and the family's short on money. I don't have to go to college, I can go out and work to support you all. He was practiced at putting on a calm, indifferent front, but the faint redness in his eyes struck straight at my heart. On the balcony, in the night breeze, the boy's silhouette looked so fragile. At that moment, I remembered a night many years ago, when he had steadied me in the night breeze. I quietly walked up to his side, feigning a casual smile. I'm a little rich lady, savior of my life, do you want me to repay you right now? He was stunned for a second, his expression darkened. Elena, how could I possibly use your money? Absolutely not. Back then, I didn't understand. We clearly loved each other, so why were we unwilling to accept my help? That was the first time we argued. Until the moon hung low in the sky, our lips trembled slightly in the chilly air. I gave in. I just took it as him cautiously guarding his own dignity. In truth, between his pride and me, he had already made his choice long ago. But he had to go to school. I started working part-time with Lucas. At first, he tutored. Because of his excellent college entrance exam scores, many parents were willing to hire him. Soon, the jobs he took on multiplied, and of course, some people began to feel jealous. A child cried and falsely accused him of child abuse, and after that, no one was willing to hire him anymore. The frustrated teenager clenched the textbook in his hand, as if the whole world was tearing him apart. I patted his shoulder. It's okay, let's deliver takeout together. If that doesn't work, handing out flyers is fine too. He held me close, the faint scent of jasmine that had long since disappeared, but I still remember it to this day. I'm sorry, Elena, I will cherish you properly and make it up to you in the future. All summer long, the relentless scorching sun and the sweat pouring down my forehead never made me feel particularly sad. On the contrary, that summer, the future the boy promised me filled me with unwavering belief. Back then, we never once imagined that such sincere and passionate love would eventually vanish without a trace in the river of time. I wandered the streets alone, aimless and meaningless. My phone kept buzzing nonstop. When I checked, it was the alumni in the school group chatting about me and Lucas. There were many voices discussing, but the meaning was almost the same. What exactly happened to Lucas and me, the so-called golden couple? Because I was also in the group chat, everyone's guesses weren't too far-fetched, but what I didn't expect was Grace outright saying, "Some men are just useless. It's one thing to be incompetent yourself, but you can't stand others being better than you." In an instant, the group chat fell completely silent. Even though it was just a virtual online world, I could feel a wave of awkward chill. Of course, Lucas didn't reply to Grace, and the alumni group fell quiet once again. I casually bought a cup of milk tea. The street was crowded, but I seemed unable to hear any sound. Hungry for a long time, even eating and drinking felt somewhat listless. The phone vibrated again, and someone in the group was looking for Grace. Sabrina first sent a sweating, side-eye emoji, then a long string of text appeared. "Grace, did you misunderstand something? You don't really know Lucas at all. Isn't what you're saying a bit biased? Did someone tell you something?" Grace's reply was just as quick, "Oh, I was wondering who it was. Isn't this the infamous bitch who knows someone has a girlfriend but still clings to him? Sabrina, don't think everyone is like Lucas. I don't know what your intentions are, always acting. I'll set up a stage for you to perform on tomorrow." Grace's words were anything but polite. But honestly, I think Sabrina's behavior deserved it. I looked at the light that felt almost glaring even under the overcast sky, tears welling up at the corners of my eyes. When did Sabrina come between Lucas and me? Uncle Edward's condition kept relapsing, and he usually managed it with medication. During that time, Aunt Veronica fell ill, and the family's financial situation declined once again. Uncle Edward, after stopping his medication for a while, finally had a relapse and was rushed to the emergency room. The doctor said a second surgery was needed, which was a considerable expense for the Lucas family. I said nothing and paid the surgery fee directly. The doctor, sweating at the ward door, announced that the surgery was successful. Lucas, who had been hanging his head the whole time, suddenly looked up, a strange light in his eyes. He stared at me, speaking slowly but with conviction, "Elena, thank you, truly thank you." I smiled and gently hugged him. "We're family, no need to be so formal." His arms tightened, as if trying to fold me into his body. I don't know how long it was before he had the strength to enter the ward, but by then, my shoulders were soaked. I thought, "Lucas, you truly deserve it, you deserve all the kindness I give you." Later, in Uncle Edward's hospital room, I met Sabrina for the first time. She had her hair tied up in a fluffy bun, and when she smiled, 2 deep dimples appeared. She placed some fruit and milk on the table and affectionately asked Uncle Edward, "Uncle, are you feeling better?" Uncle Edward was momentarily confused when Lucas introduced, "This is Sabrina, a classmate who works with me on our research project." Aunt Veronica frowned as she scrutinized Sabrina. Still with that pure, sweet, yet warm smile, Sabrina quickly ran over to Aunt Veronica's side. "Hello, Auntie. By the way, I brought some soup my mom made for Uncle, it's nourishing for patients." Lucas smiled as well. "Yeah, Auntie's cooking skills are pretty good." Sabrina's gaze shifted to Lucas, a burning, blatant emotion almost spilling over. She liked Lucas, I could feel it. And it was the kind of liking that was absolutely necessary. Sabrina stayed in the hospital room for more than 20 minutes before saying goodbye and leaving. I went out to ask the doctor, Uncle Edward, about his condition. On my way back, I happened to overhear Aunt Veronica warning Lucas, "Lucas, what's going on between you and that girl?" Lucas seemed stunned for a second, then denied, "Mom, don't overthink it. There's nothing between us, just ordinary classmates." Aunt Veronica breathed a sigh of relief. "That's good. Lucas, you must never let Elena down." Lucas's tone was sincere, at least in that moment. "Don't worry, I won't." So, I wasn't overly guarded against Sabrina's appearance. I believed in the relationship between Lucas and me, confident it wouldn't be disrupted by a third party. But I never expected Sabrina to show up so often. Lucas, who usually disliked playing with his phone, began chatting frequently on WeChat. Sometimes, he would stare at the screen with a silly smile. When I finished work and leaned against him, smilingly asking what was so funny, he would shudder all over, suddenly turn off his phone screen, and say stiffly, "Nothing, someone sent me a funny emoji." I knew my behavior was somewhat shameful, but I simply couldn't bear the feeling of suspicion and torment. On nights when he was sound asleep, I looked through his WeChat messages. Yes, it was the chat history with Sabrina. "Lucas, good morning. There's no way the big lazybones is still not out of bed at this hour, right? Get up quickly, I'm going to the park with my classmates today. I'll send you some nice photos then. I think the big lazybones is you. That afternoon when we went camping, we agreed to go hiking, but who slept next to me for 3 hours straight, and couldn't be woken up even with a ruler? Every morning, he doesn't even have time to kiss me, yet he can say good morning to another girl. They share their daily lives with each other almost every moment. In his phone's photo album, there are even a few pictures of Sabrina at the park. Although their words weren't overly harsh, after seeing that record, a chill ran through my entire body. Lucas, I really want to eat green pepper steak. Didn't you say last time that you're great at making this dish? You're amazing, I don't even know how to make it. Lucas sent a smug emoji, and Sabrina replied with a pitiful one. So, can I have green pepper steak for lunch tomorrow? Alright, I'll make you a big portion. Just don't stuff yourself too full. Sabrina sent an honest, simple smile, it's okay if it hurts. Remember last time when I twisted my ankle, you were the one who took me to the hospital. Lucas sent back a troublemaker emoji. After reading these, I put down his phone and looked at the sleeping face beside me. It was clearly the same as before, yet somehow not quite the same. When did it start that the things he was supposed to do with me were taken over by another girl? I thought the green pepper steak that was meant just for me would remain mine, but in the end, he brought it to another girl. The boy who should have belonged to me didn't seem as pure as before. I couldn't sleep, tossing and turning. I didn't even know if I should ask him whether to save a seat for him at the restaurant we had booked for my birthday tomorrow. Of course, he didn't come. It seemed he forgot that while he was delivering food to another girl, there was a girl on her birthday, longing for the sight of his back. It wasn't until I called him in the evening that he suddenly realized and apologized. I'm sorry, Elena, I've been so busy. Don't worry, I'll make it up to you. He said he wouldn't be back until midnight, he had a pile of data to analyze today. I said okay and hung up the phone. I took the meal I had prepared and headed to the school. Just as I stepped through the school gate, a torrential downpour began. I was soaked to the skin, shivering from the cold, my vision blurred by the rain, yet I could still clearly see that the boy who once gave me warmth, the one who promised to be my safe haven, was now offering his shoulder to Sabrina. He carried Sabrina on his back, carefully stepping over a low spot with a serious expression, while Sabrina laughed softly on his shoulder. He pulled out one hand, holding the umbrella, rain dripping down from it. He looked back, his eyes full of care. The two exchanged a glance, smiling sweetly. I dialed Lucas's number, saw him pull out his phone from his pocket, then Sabrina snatched it away and hung up. The phone fell to the ground, along with the meal I had prepared. I began to doubt our 12 years together. It seemed it wasn't as unbreakable as I had imagined, but rather, it had always been riddled with flaws. I remember, the rain that night was heavy, so heavy that I still remember the icy coldness as if it were a freezer. Just like now, the sky has started drizzling again. I can't help but smile bitterly, the heavens are still unfair to me. Why is it that whenever I'm sad, they hit me with another heavy blow? I threw away the milk tea and turned around. A car had stopped beside me. Lucas opened the car door, holding a bank card between his fingers. With a stern face full of anger, he threw the card at my feet. Elena, is this the bank card you gave my mom? What do you mean, a breakup fee? I glanced over, and indeed, it was the one I had just given to Aunt Veronica. I nodded, not saying a word, when suddenly Lucas squeezed my wrist. Do you think money can solve every problem? Once, I was his beloved, now, I am just Elena, called by my name like anyone else, A, B, C, or D. Our 12 years seemed unchanged on the surface, but in truth, everything had long since transformed beyond recognition. Yet, undeniably, he is still that Lucas, the Lucas I once loved. No matter what lies ahead, I hope this love remains beautiful in my heart forever. So, I explained, Aunt Veronica has treated me better than her own daughter over the years. This is my way of showing filial respect to her. He sneered coldly, shook his head, his face full of disdain. That's my mother. I will take care of her myself. I don't need you. Fine by me. I nodded, then consider it a breakup fee. He was so angry his face turned red, his eyes cold as ice. Elena, what exactly do you want? My patience has its limits. I took a deep breath, tilted my head back to look at the sky, raindrops hitting my forehead, painful and cold. Yet, it cleared my mind a lot. At least, I never want to get caught in the rain again. My heart ached, but the heavy feeling in my legs seemed to ease a little. Let's break up, Lucas. 12 years of love have become a burden to you now. we're both tired. I'm willing to give you the freedom you want. The fierce red in his eyes faded, leaving only confusion. He was stunned for a long time, then finally stared into my eyes as if seeking confirmation. Are you serious? I looked at him and nodded. His expression stiffened, and the corner of his mouth trembled with a barely noticeable curve. Elena, I can tolerate you making a mockery of me at the wedding, but don't keep pushing my limits again and again. I sneered coldly and asked him, bottom line? Lucas, what is your bottom line? I asked him seriously, staring intently into his eyes, hoping to see the answer I wanted there. My bottom line? Elena, don't you know my bottom line? Yes, I knew. Maybe I hadn't thought deeply about it when I was younger, but at graduation, I realized for the first time. Perhaps for Lucas, it was fine for me to be excellent, but being better than him was difficult. After graduation, Lucas and I made different choices. He wanted to stay at our university for graduate school, but his family situation was difficult, so I discussed with him that maybe I should go out and work instead. He gripped my hand tightly and said firmly, no, if anyone has to work, it will be me. You focus on your studies. He looked at me and smiled again. Besides, jobs are hard to find these days. I'm afraid you won't be able to get one. At the time, I didn't think much of it, but now that I reflect, wasn't that look of his a kind of inexplicable belittlement? I'll give it a try. If I can't find a job, I'll come back to take the graduate entrance exam. Don't worry about me. I thought my comfort was a kind gesture to him, but he seemed to think I was stubborn, frowning as he stood up. Elena, why do you never listen to me? I'm telling you, if you can't find it, you just can't find it. Actually, from that moment on, I began to feel that his personality was a bit strange. For many things, I always had his best interests at heart, but in the end, it seemed like I was the one at fault. That night, we argued for a long time. Neither of us would give in, and it ended with a big fight, him smashing the teacup I had given him, and storming out. Looking at the shards on the floor, amidst the mess, I felt as if my heart had been sliced open by a small knife. I was terrified of the feeling of loss. I had lost the most important thing before, and I didn't want to endure that pain again. I couldn't breathe, but I still trembled as I chased after him. At that moment, my heart and eyes were filled with the boy's retreating figure. I didn't notice a small car speeding down the road, knocking me over. In the chaos, I lost consciousness, and the last thing I saw before blacking out was the boy's face. When I woke up again, Lucas was standing by my bedside, staring at me. For the first time, the boy's eyes reddened. Elena, you're finally awake. I'm sorry, truly sorry. He grasped my right hand tightly, his knuckles white and well-defined, his face filled with unbearable guilt. In that moment, I suddenly felt that the teacup didn't matter anymore. The boy was still right in front of me, and everything else could be bought again. I smiled, pulling at the gauze, looking a little awkward. It's okay. He held me. Let's not argue anymore from now on, okay? Elena, you have no idea how worried I've been about you. At that time, wrapped in waves of warmth, a foolish thought took root in me. If Lucas and I could live in harmony and happiness forever, then I would willingly get hit by a car every single day. He said sorry many times, but I actually didn't blame him. In the room, there was another person, a short-haired young woman. She looked capable and efficient, and every word she spoke was clear. Sorry, let me quickly introduce myself. My name is Angela, and I accidentally bumped into you. I just didn't expect that Angela would become the mentor of my life. We both had an interest in equipment, and she invited me to start a business with her. Regarding the prospects and direction, she presented a flawless plan. I was quite tempted. I told Lucas, and he smiled, saying, starting a business? That's not an easy thing. But because of the hospitalization, he didn't argue with me anymore. When Angela and I started the business together, he said more than once, you two won't last long. I didn't take it to heart. Angela had a deep understanding of the market, and I was quite strong in taking action. The days of starting a business were not as smooth as we had imagined. Sometimes, we would go 2 days without sleep, just to revise a single page of the proposal. Fortunately, hard work pays off. Gradually, things began to improve, and up until now, the business has been getting better and better, earning us a place in City A. Lucas stopped belittling me, but looking back now, it seems that from that moment on, the words between us grew fewer and fewer. Silent departures had unknowingly replaced the morning kisses. The green pepper steak had long turned into leftover food he casually packed to take home. Even at night, when the two of us lay in bed, he always turned his back to me. He said, "I've been busy with a lot of academic research lately." At that time I was busy too, so busy that I had no time to care about these things. So busy that I didn't notice the young man beside me slowly drifting away. But if I became mediocre, would Lucas really come back to me and be devoted to me? I didn't dare to gamble. I once loved him deeply. But I'm the kind of person who always considers the worst outcome. If I made his love the meaning of my life, then if he stopped loving me, would I have to die? I couldn't do that. Lucas, it doesn't matter anymore. I no longer care about you, so I'm not willing to consider your bottom line or your pride as a man. Elena, it's been 12 years, everyone knows we can't be apart. Do you really think this is necessary? You're only making me hate you more. Hate? Why would anyone want to spend their whole life with someone they hate? Does Sabrina know? Lucas was taken aback. Why bring her up? What does she have to do with this? Everyone knows we can't be apart, so, does Sabrina know? Lucas seemed to have hit a sore spot. Elena, you're bringing up people who don't matter. If you want to break up, fine. Just don't regret it. I shook my head, my voice calm. No, after being together for so many years, you should know my personality, I never regret what I do. He got into the car, slammed the door hard, and drove away. Mud splattered all over me. Look, the person I loved didn't even have the courage to admit he was distracted in love. I really should have thrown him away sooner. I moved out and bought a house, not too big, not too small, in a very quiet neighborhood. After Grace found out about us, she suggested bringing her friends over to chat with me. Worried I might be upset or unable to cope, she even brought some drinks along. I cooked a few dishes, and we gathered around the dining table. At first, no one mentioned anything about Lucas and me, but gradually they realized that after ending this 12-year relationship, I wasn't as heartbroken as they had imagined. Indeed, even I hadn't expected that after losing Lucas, I would only feel a dull ache when thinking of him during a few lonely moments. After all, I had long understood that life is lived for oneself, and my life was never solely about Lucas. Curiosity was unstoppable. A few classmates couldn't help but ask me, "Why did you break up with Lucas? I remember you two were really close." My answer was simple and precise, probably because I don't love him anymore. We're both just tired. The atmosphere fell silent, and everyone's expressions grew guarded. But that was the truth. Love isn't reckless, it's a kind of responsibility. In love, we may grow weary, but we cannot lose focus. The person who is fickle in love is not the future I want. With the company of my classmates, my mood was indeed much better than before. Coupled with the fact that business was overwhelmingly busy, I quickly got used to living alone. But Lucas didn't seem to have adapted. He appeared at my doorstep, with sunken eyes, patchy stubble, and even noticeably thinner. I was somewhat surprised. After all, in my impression, Lucas was always full of vigor and spirit. I had never seen him look so despondent. He smiled at me, a bright and radiant smile, yet it was always tinged with a few impurities that made me feel uneasy. I feel like he is destroying the beautiful things in my memories. Elena, I'm free recently. How about we pick a day to book a hotel again and have the wedding? Don't worry, I've already explained the last incident to our relatives and friends for you. They won't say anything. His tone carried a hint of pleading, and my chest ached. But I knew, we could never go back. Just like now, even if he softly calls me darling, I still recall the time when his eyes were bloodshot, and he gritted his teeth shouting Elena. No need, Lucas. I've already set you free. Our past was beautiful, let's keep that beauty in our memories. No one is indispensable to anyone. Let's both embrace the futures that belong to us, isn't that better? His eyes were red, and he whispered, Elena, what's really wrong? What happened between us? Why did it come to this? Yes, why? You should ask yourself that, Lucas. You should go. He held my hand, shaking his head. I'm not leaving, Elena. Have you forgotten our beginning? We promised to buy a big villa, have 2 children, and live happily ever after. The promise we made back then was indeed beautiful, but someone broke the balance between us first. I'm not as strong as I seem, honestly, I have a bit of an emotional purity complex. When I sense that someone or something carries a scent that doesn't belong to me, I erase my own mark. Yeah, I bought a villa, I treated your parents well, I kept my promise, but what about you? He stood there stunned, unable to speak. I stared into his eyes. Do you still love me? I do love you, of course. I sneered, but do you love only me? He hesitated, uneasy, and didn't answer, but wasn't the answer already obvious? I sighed, Lucas, I don't want things to get ugly between us. I used to love you deeply, and I believe you loved me too, but now, let go. He walked away with his head down. The boy's figure was still slight, but I no longer felt the same burning passion I once did. I could no longer warm him. Aunt Veronica called me, inviting me to their home for a meal. It just so happened that I had lived with them for many years and still had some things left behind. By the time I arrived, besides the three of them, there were quite a few close relatives as well. At the dining table, the relatives all took on the role of peacemakers, each chiming in with their own words. Elena, my dear, your uncle has always thought highly of you. Now that you've grown into such a graceful young woman with a great job, isn't it time to seriously consider the big things in life? Yes, Auntie remembers how close you and Lucas have always been. About what happened last time, Lucas admitted it was his fault. As women, don't we all just want a good ending in life? Don't be too hard on men. No matter how good your job is, it's not as important as finding a good husband. Lucas is excellent too. You've been together for over 10 years, how can you just break up like that? You're both adults now, stop being so childish, okay? Aunt Veronica also took my hand, sighing as she said, no matter what, it's all Lucas's fault. If you're upset about anything, take it out on him, he won't dare say a word. I just feel sorry for you. I know Lucas still loves you. Human nature really is about seeking benefit and avoiding harm. No matter how much they treat me like their own daughter, in the end, she is still Lucas's mother. As for what their relatives say, what does it have to do with me? I have already made up my mind. I smiled, raised my glass, and toasted each person in turn. Thank you all for your care over the years. You might not know much about Lucas and me, but I'm no longer a child, I have my own judgment about things. In a while, I'll be moving away for work. Please all take care of yourselves. The relatives exchanged glances, a bit awkward. Aunt frowned at me and cleared her throat lightly. Why are you so stubborn? Lucas has been with you since he was a teenager, and you've held him back all these years. Now that you've made it big, you don't want Lucas anymore? Who's he supposed to turn to for justice? Uncle chimed in as well, yeah, Lucas even saved your life once. How can you be so ungrateful? I sneered and looked at Lucas. Lucas looked back at me and sighed, Elena, after 12 years of feelings, can you really bear to let go? I laughed, raising an eyebrow at Auntie. Isn't love something between two people? When we first got together, if he didn't want to, I couldn't have held a knife to his throat to force him to be with me, right? These past 10+ years, it's Lucas who's been held back, but hasn't it held me back too? You're a woman yourself, how can you think a woman's youth is less valuable than a man's? Besides, my success is all from my own hard work. Ask Lucas, did he ever contribute a single bit? Auntie's face turned pale, her ears flushed red, and she was left speechless. I turned to Uncle, frowning. Yes, Lucas once saved my life, but I've saved Uncle Edward's too. Even the biological parents who gave a child life can't expect the child to spend their whole life repaying them, right? I've been dutiful to Uncle Edward and Aunt Veronica, and after all these years with Lucas, I've always considered his feelings. I have a clear conscience. Uncle's expression was no better than Auntie's. Finally, I cast a cold glance at Lucas. Lucas, before you ask if I can let go of these more than 10 years of feelings, ask yourself first, weren't you the one who abandoned me first? His eyes began to avoid mine. When I was buying the house, you said you had classes. When I was renovating, you said you had academic meetings. When I was buying furniture, you were still very busy. Do you know? Those were our agreements, not just mine alone. You hurriedly glanced over and sarcastically said, Elena, you really are rich. Lucas's face turned red, and I asked him, don't you remember? Lucas shook his head and hurriedly explained, no, I was just sighing over a sentence. I stood up and confronted him, what were you doing on my birthday? What were you doing when I set the wedding date? And what about when I went to pick out wedding supplies? Lucas's eyes darted left and right, but he couldn't say a word. I sneered and took out the photos. Let me tell you. In the first one, Sabrina is sitting beside him, holding a lunchbox, while he uses chopsticks to feed her green pepper steak. On my birthday, you made my favorite green pepper steak and fed it to another girl. In the second photo, Sabrina is holding his arm, tilting her head up, looking at him with admiring eyes as he wears a face full of enjoyment. On the day the wedding date was set, you, who were supposed to attend an academic conference, spent a blissful private moment with Sabrina in the suburban park. In the third photo, Sabrina and him are embracing, both with their eyes closed, smiling with radiant happiness. When I went to pick out wedding supplies, you abandoned your fiancé and went to the amusement park with another girl. If I'm not mistaken, she kissed you on the Ferris wheel, and you didn't refuse. The relatives fell silent, and Aunt Veronica glared at Lucas with a face full of anger. I looked at him too. Lucas, is this what you call loving me? He was extremely embarrassed, but still forced himself to say, you actually investigated me? I sneered, I investigated you? I was so busy back then, with no one to share the burden, how could I have time to investigate you? These are photos from Sabrina's social circle, where you went, what you did, she wrote it all out clearly. Why did Sabrina do this? It's simple, so I would find out. Sabrina is an outright bitch, but Lucas couldn't withstand the test either. As the saying goes, flies don't land on a seamless egg. Lucas opened his mouth, but in the end, only a simple syllable came out, ah. I shook my head. Lucas, at first, I just wanted to leave you with some dignity. It's not because I still love you, I just don't want the beautiful memories I have to be tainted. What I cherish isn't you, but the 12 years of feelings I had. Lucas was at a loss. Finally, he said dryly, Elena, listen to me, I have no ulterior motives toward you, I waved my hand to interrupt him. Enough, no need to say more. It's unnecessary and unimportant. Let it be. I turned around to grab my bag, suddenly hearing a sharp, clear sound. Looking back, Lucas had a slap mark on his face. Aunt Veronica was furious, how could you treat Elena like this? I worked so hard to raise you, and this is what I got, a disloyal, ungrateful, shameless beast. It was clear that Aunt Veronica was truly angry. Lucas kept his head down, not daring to say a word. Aunt Veronica scolded him for a long time, then finally turned to me, tears streaming as she grabbed my hand, Elena, don't be like this. He was wrong, really wrong. If he weren't my own son, I'd want to beat him to death. I held Aunt Veronica, what's done is done, Aunt Veronica, it has nothing to do with you. Aunt Veronica wiped her tears and stared at me, child, please forgive Lucas. You've helped our family so much, I really don't want to hurt you like this. Stay here, I promise Lucas will treat you well from now on. She shot a glare at Lucas, who hurried over to apologize, but I pushed him away, Aunt Veronica, it's over between Lucas and me. Thank you for taking care of me all these years. If there's ever anything I can help with, just call me, I won't change my number. After saying that, I went to pack my things. Lucas chased me to my room, grabbing my arm, his face full of remorse, Elena, I know I was wrong. Please don't leave me. I promise, I'll never do this again. I don't like Sabrina, will you believe me? After saying that, he took out his phone and deleted Sabrina's WeChat in front of me, even blocking her number. He said sincerely, I only love you, from when I was 16 until now. In fact, judging by the many years Lucas and I have spent together, he might not really like Sabrina. But does he really fail to see what Sabrina has done? Doesn't he know that his ambiguous relationship with Sabrina hurts me? He knew. He was addicted to Sabrina's adoration, using it to sustain his sickly self-esteem. From the moment he chose vague ambiguity, all the clarity that followed meant nothing to me. His indulgence, his momentary restlessness, he knew it would hurt me yet still went ahead. Between us, there was no turning back. Forget it, Lucas. I've said it before, I don't regret what I do, and I don't take back what I say. After packing my things, I said goodbye to Aunt Veronica. Most of the relatives had left, and in the empty living room, Aunt Veronica was sobbing uncontrollably, nearly collapsing to the floor. Fortunately, I caught her. Elena, without you, Uncle Edward would have died long ago. Our family wouldn't have had such good days. It's all Lucas's fault, all his fault. Please forgive Lucas for us, just consider it a plea from your aunt. I wiped away her tears and spoke gently, Aunt Veronica, you owe me nothing. The warmth you once gave me, I will never forget it in this lifetime. I took my things and left. As the door closed behind me, my tears began to fall. From now on, Elena, you are alone once again. I moved to another city and quickly got used to the new life. Grace often kept in touch with me, occasionally teasing me, yo, Elena, you really are pitiful, having nothing left but money. But besides that, she told me many other things. After breaking up with me, Lucas didn't get together with Sabrina either. He lost his temper with Sabrina and said many heartless things, and Sabrina gave up on him. Sabrina seemed to have some psychological barrier. She didn't like normal boys but preferred those who were already married. She fell for another graduate student classmate, but unfortunately, this classmate was already married. She might have found confidence with Lucas and repeated the same trick, constantly pestering him to chat and go out. But that classmate's wife was not a kind woman. All the seductive photos and suggestive messages Sabrina sent were printed out by the classmate's wife and posted around Sabrina's neighborhood. The classmate's wife even hung up a banner, and a loudspeaker played non-stop for 8 hours during the day. Sabrina from Unit 1, 3rd floor, room 2 to 3 fell in love with my account at first sight and has been relentlessly pursuing me. I bless them both and voluntarily give way. Sabrina's father, in front of the neighbors, slapped Sabrina hard. These things spread widely, and Sabrina voluntarily dropped out of school. It was said that the whole family moved away. Where they went, no one knows. 12 years of affection are not simply black or white. There is beauty, but there is also pain. As for the bright young boy I loved, he has already left me. I must still face the light, move forward, and keep moving forward. Even if I am alone. As for Lucas, even though I deliberately avoided news of him, I learned years later that he remains alone to this day. But what use is it? Belated affection is worth less than grass. The story ends.